Well, let's continue the discussion now around the number of public schools across the country plagued by violence, drug abuse, bullying, rape, sexual harassment and other social ills. We are now joined by someone who is no stranger to law enforcement, former National Commissioner of the Police, retired General Riah Phiyega. She's the CEO of Safer South Africa. Mayor Phiyega, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Unati, for the invitation. And also, thank you for your viewers for joining in.
Perhaps let's, as the CEO of Safer South Africa, let's start our conversation with the current worrying events that we are seeing in our country's schools. There are daily reports of violence in the schools, and some sadly leading to bullying, death, or even suicide. Do you think we have a crisis in our schools? And if so, how is your organization lending a helping hand?
I do think that there are very significant challenges in our schools. And I would like to start off by saying, remember, a school is a microcosm of society. And if we are experiencing these levels of crime, violence in our society, it is almost a given that you'd start experiencing some of those in schools. And indeed, in the schools, even if you look at the statistics that is being released by the police and start looking at the incidences of, bullying, rape, murder in schooling institutions, it tells a story about what we need to do. In my organization, Safer South Africa Foundation, we hold the belief that, fighting crime requires two levers. One lever is where the crime has already happened and there's intervention. And if we look at the architecture of our interventions in this country, a lot of our resources are focused, and even constitutionally, are focused on intervention post-crime commitment. The one lever that is under-resourced, and that is very necessary, is the prevention lever, where we have to focus on education, awareness, driving good values, and giving our young people the opportunity to make the right choices through educating them on crime prevention, crime fighting, and all those issues. So Safer South Africa Foundation focuses on that. We are in the schools and we're working very, very closely, hand in glove with the entire security cluster and the Department of Education. And that is where we push the whole issue of awareness and education and giving the young people a choice, an opportunity to make good choices. I am of the view that no child is born a criminal. Somewhere in their socialization, they are introduced to or socialized into crime. And, our response as a society is not just to look at how we punish. We must look at how we prevent by giving the young people an opportunity to make right choices. So we cannot do so if we don't intervene too in the socialization towards how, what crimes we have, what their choices are, and what they can do. We are ardent believers of the fact that children are citizens too.
On that note, we will be commemorating Human Rights Day soon, and one of the rights that has to be highlighted is that of safety and education for learners. So are learners' rights to quality education in safe environments being infringed upon? More importantly, do you think the Department of Basic Education and the South African Police Service is failing our children by not ensuring those environments are safe for learning?
I do believe that more has to be done to create safer environments. We come from a situation where, safe learning environments were a given. We are now in a situation where safe learning environments are not a given. Therefore, it is required that more be invested, not just in the physical security, but also in the community awareness and mobilizing communities to be a part of these processes, to work hand in glove with the schools, to work hand in glove with the security cluster, because I think we should get out of that whole notion that, Pretoria will do for us. We all need to stand up, all hands on deck, communities, learners, schools, the government itself, so that we work together to push back crime. I believe that crime is a national sport. It is not just a government sport. And that is why NGOs like ourselves, together with government, together with other corporate partners who think that we have a role to prevent and push back crime, are coming on board to do those type of issues. And indeed, the rights of learners are infringed if nothing is being done to create a positive, secure, peaceful learning environment for them, because they are then distracted. They have to be thinking about, how do I invest some of my energy to become safe in order to learn? It can be where we are having learners killing teachers at school, learners stepping each other, killing each other, learners being raped at school. It can be. That can never be a safe learning environment. And that behooves all of us to start thinking differently. It is our issue. It is an issue that requires each and everyone in society to put their effort in helping our schools.
Talking about safety and crime, recent developments within the South African Police Service have again raised some concerns around the level of law enforcement in this country, especially given the divisions within the police management. Of course, this comes after yet another National Police Commissioner like you have also faced, has failed to finish their term. Help us unpack exactly what is happening in the National Police Service at the moment.
I own no professorial knowledge of that space, but as a citizen of this country, I am confident that no one can even think that that department requires serious attention. I think it is a very dangerous sport to be a national commissioner in this country. The instability in that institution is highly concerning. And I'm saying so because, you just have to look at other departments. You have to look at the Department of Defense, you have to look at the AG, you have to look at Correctional Service, you have to look at the NPA. There is some level of stability. And until we start looking at the leadership stability in the police service, we are not going to conquer a number of these issues. And I would categorize that in a number of areas. Firstly, there must be leadership resolve at the top to support that department, so that the delineation of roles of the National Commissioner and the delineation of roles of the minister in that department are clear. Not only clear, but also protected. Because for as long as gray areas are there, we will find ourselves where we are. It becomes a contested turf instead of mobilizing the energy towards positive delivery of service towards the citizens of this country. And I do believe that that is possible because we see it in the other entities. It is possible that that can happen in the police service. That's the one area. Secondly, I think any person who comes into that position as a national commissioner, the operational accountability and responsibility need to be fenced. For as long as the national commissioner is not able, in terms of what the law requires of him or her, to be given that responsibility, that platform that is protected to drive operations in the police service, it will remain a problem. So what am I saying? I am saying political interference has to be looked into. There is a role for politics, for political participation. The minister in a police service of course, is the political leader. He links that department with the cabinet. Of course, he is responsible for ensuring that there is strategic direction in terms of policing. But when it comes to operation, whoever leads the police service must be given the opportunity to do so. And also, the person who is in that position also needs to have very strong administrative governance and management qualities, because it's not policing all the way. You also need to be able to be strong in management, strong in governance, strong in administration, because that's a huge machine. It is a department that has over 200,000 employees. It's a department that manages a budget that is close to 90 billion. So you need the capacity. It's a serious machine. You need somebody with the capacity to be able to do so. So being a national commissioner is being a DG, being an accounting officer. So when those choices are made, those issues has to be taken into account. Then I think it's important. Okay.
We are currently sitting without a national police commissioner. We, in four times probably in succession now, we have had a national commissioner not finalizing that role, not holding that role to the end of its term. We have been speaking about who should be the replacement for national commissioner. Perhaps the question is, what will it take for this country to get it right, to have a national police commissioner that will be in that role and deliver the job? Because as we are sitting now, coming out of the unrest that we saw in July of last year, the country is worried that there is a problem at leadership level where we are speaking about law enforcement. So what will it take for us to see a national police commissioner that the country relies on, that the country trusts, and that they will actually do the job, and that is of crime prevention and keeping this country safe?
Look, Onati, what is undeniable is that is a poison. That's a poison chalice, and there is enough information on the table for the president, who is the person responsible for appointing a national commissioner, to analyze, to interpret, to see what has gone wrong, and try and use that information as input to inform whatever decision that he's going to take. And ensure that once he has analyzed, he has given that good attention, and he appoints a person there, he gives enough support to insulate the decision that he would have taken as the commander-in-chief of also the police service. I think any person that is going to be appointed might have the right qualities if there isn't sufficient support so that he's got space to run operations in policing. We will be in the same space again.
You are currently doing some fantastic work in South African schools through your social work. You've been highly successful on the business front too before you took up the role of National Police Commissioner. But the Marikana massacre will always define your career in a very negative light. Do you think that is a fair assessment? How would you define your career? I mean, you speak about somebody that needs to be appointed in this role to have impeccable credentials. You thought at that point that you were.
I do have very impeccable credentials. I do have a very good track record in whatever I have done in my entire life. And I would say to you today that I keep on fighting what I see as Riah Phiyega having been used as a scapegoat to carry a can that she should not have carried. There is no national commissioner that is responsible for operational rollout of any public order policy. I have said it in this spot that as a leader of the police service, of course you would take responsibility for particular things. And it doesn't need any textbook. What happened in Marikana should never have happened in this country. As a leader of the police service, there are two platforms at which I took responsibility. The moral duty of any leader would be to apologize on behalf of the service, which I have done, which I do again today.
Now, you are the CEO.
And then is vicarious responsibility, which says, because the service that I lead has erred, let any recourse that is due to this service take place. As a person, really, I do not believe that I needed to carry the can that this process has made me to carry. But as a leader of that service, indeed, my moral duty and my vicarious duty I have taken and shall continue to take. But my career, I think I have done extremely well. And I think for a woman in this country, I'm truly grateful for having been granted the many opportunities that I've had as a woman leader.
As the CEO of Safer South Africa, Safer South Africa Foundation, what would it take for this country like ourselves, particularly given your background in law enforcement, your background in social work, to keep the women and children of this country safe? I mean, we have stellar policies in place as a country, but yet we continue year in and year out to fail our women and children in as far as safety and crime is concerned.
I'll pick up from the last statement you've made. We have stellar policies. And it's not only in this area, it's in many other areas. However, as a nation, our weakness is implementation. And I would argue, Unati, that we're not a poor country. It is how we mobilize our resources towards those things that matter to ensure that our implementation works. We hear every year about what sterling work has been done by SARS to collect taxes, to finance our government to do what they're supposed to be doing. And I would want to say so much, and beautiful plans, whether you talk about what the Department of Justice is doing to deal with people who are abused, but the numbers of abused women, the numbers of young children in schools that are underage, that are pregnant, the numbers of bullying cases, it just tells us that something ain't happening. And if we pull our energies together and start realizing that, together we can do more, together we can achieve even better. And I think maybe somewhere else, somebody must just put us in one big stadium, that we have a huge endeavor around how the civil society, government, business, we are having many efforts that are uncoordinated, that seem not to be hitting the right note in terms of ensuring that we push back the statistics that are just horrendous and scary.
I want to wrap this conversation by talking about just the lack of accountability that we are seeing in this country. What would it take for leaders, to hold themselves accountable where they fail, for instance, to ensure that these policies are implemented? You speak about how you yourself were made a scapegoat in the whole Marikana issue. What then will it take for the real culprits, to be held accountable for the crimes that they commit in this country? We have yet to see the masterminds of the July unrest as an example. We have yet to see real people held accountable who are behind these heinous atrocities that are committed on ordinary South African citizens on a daily basis.
Nat, we must investigate, we must arrest, we must prosecute. Because very clearly, the acts have happened. Nobody didn't see South Africa burning. We saw South Africa burning. with our own eyes, through all the mediums, your television, your radio, and whatever. But the big question is, who banned South Africa? And through investigation, we will be able to deal with who. And when they are in court, we'll be able to know what forced them to ban South Africa. And the courts would be able to decide what sort of a sentence should be meted to those people. And it goes for anything, whether it's Marikana, whether it's July, whether it's the many things that we see. You know, let us investigate, let us arrest, let us bring those people before our very effective, justice system, and let's incarcerate them if we have to. Let's give the necessary sentences that are needed. We have, correctional service that will take the people in. But nothing seems to happen, and I think there is a disconnect in terms of the acts that really aggrieves us all as a nation. The arrests, the courts, the incarceration. It almost feels like we are stagnant. Not much is happening. It talks to corruption. Yes, we're starting to see certain things happening, but I think we can do more because corruption is visible to everybody in this country. And it starts from the most bottom area to the top. We know it, we see it, but we need responsive intervention that shows that we deal with these issues. And our system does work. And it will also act as a system that makes others not to be corrupt, not to commit crime, not to do whatever. I think we need to do more. There is much, much more that needs to be done if we are to save ourselves as a nation.
We need to do more. Well, on that note, thank you so much for your time, CEO of Safer South Africa Foundation, Riah Phiyega. Do appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Of course, former National Commissioner of the Police, retired General Riah Phiyega, also touching on certain issues within the SAPS and, of course, Marikana.